talk to us about how significant this bill, if passed, could be.
Well, I think, frankly, these are some of the most significant potential changes to consumer technology products that Congress has debated maybe ever. As you said, they're aimed at prohibiting the big five companies, top five companies, from preferencing their own products. And so, in effect, that would mean that Amazon couldn't feature Amazon Basics brand products. It probably couldn't highlight Amazon Prime 2-day shipping products. A new iPhone probably couldn't come pre installed with iMessage or FaceTime. And a Google search for a local restaurant probably couldn't include a Google map. So if you think of tech products like a car, right, that comes installed with windshield wipers or a radio, under this bill, you would be forced to get all those amenities separately rather than having the convenience of having them built in. And it's not surprising that there's some companies like Yelp and Spotify that would benefit from that kind of mandate. But I think consumers would see pretty negative impacts from this kind of step.
That said, even though a number of senators opposed the bill, they still pushed it out of committee. I want you to take a quick listen to Senator Coons and what he had to say.
I have remaining concerns about privacy and security, about our global competitiveness, and about services that are widely popular with consumers and my constituents. So I am going to support this bill in markup here today in this committee, but I expect the bill sponsors will continue to work to address some of these open questions that I and many others have expressed about the bill.
Tom, what do you make of that? There's clearly bipartisan support for big tech, reining in big tech in some way, but will there be actual agreement on how to do that?
Yeah, I think there's a long distance from getting out of committee where we've gotten so far to actually seeing this put into, something more substantial and make its way through the Senate. There is bipartisan support. I know there's debate about how much the support is or isn't in favor, and I do think that, you do see people who are advocating on behalf of the tech companies trying to send the message that this will hurt consumers. It's hard to see exactly where the consumer gets hurt when, if you're one of the advocates of this legislation, the argument is that you're giving more choice. You're doing away with, or you're undermining the subtle ways in which a Google, for example, puts forth its products or gives them a little bit more prominence, or the ways that Amazon might encourage subtly or overtly it's the businesses on its marketplace from having to use its products. And also there's questions about the extent to which Amazon uses the data that it collects on these businesses to advantage its own products. It knows what sells. It knows what flies off the virtual shelves. And it's hard for Amazon to make an argument that it doesn't use that information to its advantage. And Google is very much in the driver's seat when it comes to how the page is laid out and what you see. And ditto for Apple, when these apps come preloaded, they get preference. They show up and they're right there for you. And I think the intent behind this is to level the playing field a little bit more. And if you're a lawmaker, knocking big tech gives you some political points, and that's kind of crucial for some in an election year.
Adam, as somebody who worked at Alphabet/Google for many years, you said earlier you think consumers are going to be hurt by this, but on the other hand, it seems almost obvious, what Tom says there. Of course, Google preferences its own products, and isn't that a conflict of interest?
Well, frankly, and Tom referred to this, I think what you saw at the hearing today was, frankly, a pretty good debate over what's at stake. And there's two competing visions. You saw Senator Klobuchar voice a concern that, as Tom said, big tech services had allegedly crowded out services like Yelp and Spotify, made it harder for those for services to reach customers. But then you did have people like Senator Feinstein, as you excerpted, and even Senator Padilla, who had a really interesting moment in the hearing where he said, look, consumers like that they can go to Amazon or Google, search for a local restaurant or product, and within a few clicks, it's theirs. They appreciate the convenience of integrated services. So I think you saw those two opposing viewpoints going at it in frankly, a pretty substantive way during this hearing today. And the sponsors of the bill are clearly trying to help some companies. Other senators argued that millions of Americans are pretty satisfied, and I think, frankly, that's why you see both Republicans and Democrats somewhat divided on this topic.
Realistically, how much more debate do you expect to see here, and what is the likelihood of this bill actually getting passed, Adam, from the vantage point in Washington?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it faces an uphill battle because senators are split. Yes, it has bipartisan support. Yes, it was approved by a majority of committee members today. But if you dig deeper and watch the hearing, and again, we've been talking about this, you saw both Democrats and Republicans voice significant concerns. There's a custom of senatorial deference, but I do think it was unusual that you saw some Democrats saying, look, I'm going to vote for this, but it needs work. And that's a very similar posture to a lot of House Democrats to their version of this bill. Even Senator Grassley, who's the lead Republican on the bill, had a moment in the hearing where he said, look, this bill really isn't ready yet to attract the necessary 60 votes that it would need to pass the Senate floor. And leaders of the Senate and House tend not to bring bills to the floor unless they have unified support from the majority party. I think you saw today on the Democratic side that among Democratic senators, there are mixed views on this as of now.
So, Tom, what are you going to be watching for quickly as we move forward?
Well, you saw debate over amendments. We talked about the international dimension here and whether this disadvantages U.S. players. So lawmakers are not going to let something pass that they view is going to somehow give an advantage to these big Chinese players. So you're already starting to see discussion of amendments that would also target ByteDance, Tencent, et cetera. So I think the international dimension is going to come to play. And I think these small businesses need to get their message across. Google and Apple and the large companies have platforms, and they are able to get their views out there, and they're able to show this is the way things are, and you like it because this is the way things are. The small businesses need to get their message across, which is there's a choice, and are you being given a choice as a consumer about the search engine you use, the products you buy, the apps that you download? And can these big platforms be doing a better job of giving you that choice and making that choice clear to you? That's what these smaller businesses need to do a better job of communicating.